from a lending standpoint, I think we kind of play not to lose, whereas I think it's a little more aggressive in the sense of playing to win down in the US. So that's what I seem to see.
Canada is seeing home prices. I didn't actually write down where I actually got this, but I came across the Hotwire. Prices of houses selling twice as much as the previous year, despite everything, that's been going on, right? And then like your take, brother, on the front line of, is that like an actual thing that's completely true? Or is that like one of those really cool, like, man, wouldn't that be great in the vacuum of things that were, and then the lagging indicator, but the leadings are telling something different. So what's going on up in your neck of the woods, brother?
In our neck of the woods, I don't think that's true. I don't want to, I mean, if it's out there, I mean, I'd want to just look at it. We've seen, so our urban areas, I'll give you an example. So we're a half hour outside of Toronto. Toronto might be the size of like, Chicago, let's say. So half hour outside Milton, Ontario. To buy a townhouse here is hard to do less than 700,000. So it could be that there's that spillover effect where people are coming, they're driving until they can afford it kind of thing. But to double prices in a year just doesn't seem sustainable in any way. We were heading up on a big run, low interest rates, high demand. I think that when we talk about Canada versus the US, what I've seen is we're getting a lot of the talent internationally coming here. I think our borders are a little more open. There's a little bit more happening here. Our unemployment was the lowest it's been in like 44 years before this COVID thing. So in that sense, the Corporation of Canada was doing pretty well. But to double seems a little bit, I don't know where those numbers came from. If they just happened to take, they said all of Canada, that's what you heard?
It was the copy paste, man. And now,
Wow.
we're hanging out, with the monk at the foot and the whole deal. And I wish I would have cited the source, but
Yeah.
I grabbed it. We started jamming. And so I wanted to get the quote out so that there'd be a chronology for the prompt. But
I would say most parts of Canada.
Crazy.
Yeah, most parts of Canada, about 5 to 7% a year. I mean, we've had a couple of double-digit years where, the right things have happened. And again, it's all demand. Like we're getting, a couple 100,000 people that are coming into Canada every year.
Right.
Skilled labor, like really good people coming into the country.
Yeah, and I was wondering maybe if that was one of those things where maybe something has doubled. Prices sounded a bit aggressive.
Maybe it's number of sales. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
right.
All the builders are pumping out new products. I mean, people are buying them. There's lineups at where we are. I mean, people line up to get builder homes.
Would you say that traditionally Canada tends to sort of trend in favor or in kind to the lower 48?
We do. I think so. If you go back to 2008, which I know was a really rough time for you guys, probably took 5-6 years to climb out of the hole, which by the way, was a different thing. That was a financial crisis. What we're going through now with COVID is a health crisis. Very different. Like there's a fear now to go show homes, whereas before it was like a fear that, the whole economy is going to collapse. But, going back to that, I guess really the way I would answer is, sorry, just repeat the question. I just want to make sure I get everything. I want to answer it properly.
Yeah. So you had mentioned how things were doing, pre-COVIDs, and it sounded in lockstep with kind of what we were experiencing, and it just sort of brought about the curiosity of, do we all kind of parallel? Is it like the rising tide of the continent sort of raises both of our ships?
Somewhat, I think so. So we have different banking practices, right? So I mean, our default rates now, I think, are like, I don't know, I think yours are 10 or 11 times higher than Canadian default rates. I mean, what it sounds like in the US is there's, 200, 250 different banks. We've got 5 big ones, and they tend to be more conservative. So from a lending standpoint, I think we kind of play not to lose, whereas I think it's a little more aggressive in the sense of playing to win down in the US. So that's what I seem to see. Um, there's obviously relations, right? I mean, there's a lot of trade in between the borders. I think when you're doing well, generally we're doing well. There's a currency exchange there. Um, Probably, like, how have you been the last 2-3 years? Like, have you seen a run up on prices?
We've been rock and roll for
Yeah, we've kind of been that way too, right? We had a
all
little
too
bit,
long.
there was a stress test introduced. Do you guys have anything like that in mortgages where they would almost qualify you based on a higher artificial rate than the actual rate?
Hmm.
Have you experienced anything like that?
Not to that level of actual nuance. I think that's all sort of cooked in as medicine with the mashed potatoes, but like that actual element, I don't believe that's been introduced down here.
Yeah, yeah. So that's something we had. So even though you would pay, you get an interest rate at 3%, you would have to qualify for a 5% mortgage, which would essentially reduce your purchasing power by,
Sure.
16%, something like
Sure.
that.
Sure.
Yeah, yeah. So things like that, I think, have kept us kind of steady increase, not so kind of, maybe not the run up as quick and then the crash down. It's been much more steady climb. But yeah, I think for most of the world leading up to COVID, we've all been pretty good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's been no major signs of recession, although there are some underlying economic factors that always keep people scared, but that's the way it is, right?
So then maybe point blank,
Yeah.
right, to kind of put the bow on it, right? So I think that's a beautiful sort of fluff of the pillow there, right? So as the head slaps, it's like, where are you guys at right now? What's true? And where do you see this now moving in the next 90 days?
So COVID, like I said, I think when people start to kind of not feel scared to go outside and to go see homes, I think real estate's probably going to be one of the first to recover. Because, for example, like sports, like we're not going to see sports until there's probably a vaccine for this thing. I mean, that's cooked. Concerts, those kind of things, like where there's large gatherings, it doesn't make sense.
Like non-essential,
Yeah,
I know that word's getting blown out right now, but like categorically.
we're considered essential service in real estate, and I mean, open houses are banned where we are, so we're not allowed to do those.
Same
But I
game
think,
for us.
yeah, I think the act of showing a house, or I mean, buyers are going to start the process of recovery. I think that they're going to come before the listings come, because a listing is more risky because you don't know who's coming in your house, right? At least buyers can say, "Well, I know I'm not at risk," right? It's a private showing. It's you plus a client. The risk there is even lower than if you had to get groceries. I don't know, like, I mean, some of the things, like when I go and get groceries, there's markers now on the floor. You can only go down the aisles one way. We're seeing things like that to kind of mitigate risk. But
Yeah, same.
I think fundamentally is that going to see a house for sale is less risky than 50 other things I could list right now.
Well, I would push back on that just a little bit for sake of there being a fruit here. There's no question that there is a category. I'd be hesitant to put a percentage on it, even though all percentages are made up anyway, about the folks that we're going to sell that are sitting on the sideline strictly because of the health concern, right?
Right.
Person with the COVID's traipsing around, them getting sick. So, like, for example, even in our crew, some of the folks with pre-existing conditions, it's been well documented. If you're the older population, you're more susceptible. Like, so, categorically, there are a couple of, but I'm actually seeing a lot of the other side also, which is everybody's always trying to time a real estate market from a seller perspective. And almost invariably, everybody gets it wrong in the sense that they get there too late. Right. So it's like impossible to time it. Even if you timed it perfectly with like the first news coming as the shot over the bow that hits you right in the forehead that says, okay, it finally hit the top of the crest of the 10-year mark. It's time to go. That stat alone is already 30 to 45 to 60 days old. Right. So it's literally impossible unless you're a broken clock that's still right twice a day kind of thing to time it. So I think in that respect, I'm seeing a lot of sellers that are trying like heck They're knocking their poor mother-in-laws down flights of steps to get their name on the market right now because they feel like they're trying to place an insurance policy against something actually that's further to fall.
Yeah, I've heard clients say, I'd rather take the devil I know now than the devil I don't know in the future. I think most of us can agree it's temporary. And that's what we're seeing with us is that most sellers are not, accepting offers. I mean, there's buyers out there that are always willing to buy homes at half price, but
Right.
most of the sellers are saying, look, like, unless I use it, like I'm using like a gift card analogy, right? Like if I had a $25 gift card to Target, let's say, how much would I sell that to you for? I mean, if I needed to get rid of it now, maybe $22, $23. I'm not going to give it to you for $10. And it's kind of the same thing, right? It's like there's inherent value in this real estate.
Why would you take a discount at all?
That's what I mean. If I wasn't motivated, then I'd hang on for my $25. But you know what I mean? If I had to get rid of it, if I needed liquid cash right now,
Fair.
and that's
Fair,
it. Some
fair,
people
fair, fair.
before COVID, right? Before COVID, they bought a home. Now they need to sell. They're motivated sellers. They have a hard deadline that's coming up. I mean, we're trying to just let everyone know, if you don't have to sell, just let this blow over. I think where you'll start to see the activity, I don't know about you, but I've been looking at showings really close in our area, and it tracks almost exactly inverse with virus cases, right? So I think when we start to see that, the curve flatten, when we start to see things start to improve, you're going to start to see real estate showings just do the exact opposite. It'll start to get better as there's less and less cases.